classroom. Okay, so let's begin what we are talking about. So yesterday I talked a little bit about the ecological aspect, a different kind of parameters that we talk about in ecology. Let's say environment and different aspects of ecology. So right away, coming from the global to the organismal ecology. So let's move a little bit ahead. So here we'll see a couple of definitions. So these are kind of terminologies which will be more frequently used in the classes thereafter. So the first one is the ecology. So as I already defined, but again, we can say that this deals with the interaction between organism and their environment. Next comes the biodiversity. So this biodiversity is kind of variability among all living organisms. So biodiversity is kind of an example where you can see that, let's say we say that there's a single term for different kind of microorganisms. Now we can split this microorganisms into bacteria and virus or maybe fungus. So now again, bacteria is again a very umbrella term. So this bacteria can again split into different kind of groups. Then further we can define different kind of, let's say, families, order and genus. So biodiversity means that it's kind of variability that we can have between the living organisms. Now this particular biodiversity, it could be between the different living, let's say plants, microorganisms, or even mammals, we can have this. So now the second term which comes is the population. So this population, it is a kind of collection of all the species in a given area. So usually you must have seen that population census for humans is being done every 10 years. So what people do is that from the government perspective, different people are appointed to collect data regarding how many people are living in a specific, let's say, city, district, or in a colony. So that's kind of data is being generated, and depending upon that data, now the further government policies will be monitored. So another simple example could be, let's say, from the Searaj perspective, we see there are a couple of animals, especially those who have already visited the campus. They already know that there's a specific variety of snake, which is the cobra. So they are fine. They are a lot nowadays. So it's been a while that you have been in the campus, but now if you will coming again to the campus, so you'll see that now because of these a large number of cobra, now we have large number of peacocks as well. So earlier I was talking about that one species or one different kind of organism dictates the appearance or the presence of another organism. So this is a new example that you can see by it yourself. So a year ago, we could hardly see a peacock in the campus. But now, since we have a lot of snakes which are being surviving in this particular area, and they are, you can say that they are not being hunted. So it's a kind of a conservatory for them. So now, because of that, some peacocks, they migrated to this particular area. Since you might be aware that peacocks, they feed on snakes. So in this area, the availability is more, and moreover, peacocks, they are also not hunted here. So it's a kind of safe house for both peacock as well as cobra. So now it's their mutual interaction that is dictating their numbers. So in a way, we can say that peacock is keeping a watch on the number of cobra, and cobra, they are, since available in abundance, they are helping in the survival of the peacocks. So there's another term which is called the organism. So organism is, it's a living entity. So that living entity could be anything like micro, plant, animal, anything. So that will usually be used. Then comes the next term is the biome. So it is the biosphere is organized to small parts called biome. So depending on the kind of environmental conditions that are prevailing, the earth, the whole global perspective can be divided into different kind of biomes. Then the another term is the community. So all the population in a given area. So let's say, for example, if we talk about the Central University of Rajasthan, so here we have a community of, let's say we have cobra, peacocks, some dogs, and some birds, different kind of birds, some plants, babul trees. Those, so that is a kind of community where different populations are living. Now comes the next term, which is called the niche. So it is a comfortable or a suitable position. So you might have heard this phrase that you need to create your own niche. So I can quote an example. So let's say there's a classroom. So in that particular classroom, there are 40, 50, 60 students. So teacher may be delivering a lecture in front of those students. Now it is up to the students how to grasp this. So on different occasions, it is quite possible that the teacher may ask questions, he or she may take assessment, and after like couple of days, every student manages to create an image, a kind of niche we can say. So now because of that, a teacher recognizes them. So it is quite possible that let's say some students, they may be categorized, okay, these students, they are good in this particular topic, these students, they are good in that particular topic, these students, they are good in, let's say, debate or some extracurricular activities, some sports. So it's kind of the situation or their overall position that the students have created over the time. So a similar kind of thing is applied to other organisms as well. So all the organisms, they create a niche around themselves or their own visibility in the community as a whole. Then the next term is ecosystem. So this ecosystem, it's a kind of environment which takes into account both the biotic and the abiotic components. So biotic components, we can say that all the organisms, plants, animals, microbes, they come into this. The abiotic components could be, let's say, sunlight, water, soil, rocks. So they come into this perspective. So when we talk about a specific area where we are talking about all the living as well as the non-living entities. So that is called as the ecosystem. So then there's another term which is called the biosphere. So it is the portion of the earth in which life exists. And that is a very, very complex system. So one can say that several ecosystems, when they are combined together, they constitute a biospheres. So this is a kind of a pictorial representation of what we talked about in the previous slides. So here you can see that we have this smallest entity, let's say individual. So when we have a collection of individuals, we call it a population. And when in a specific area, we have different kind of population. So you can see there's a deer, there's another small organism, owl, some rabbits, and different kind of plants and grasses, they are taken together. So we call it a community. Now we have a ecosystem. So here you can see that it's the biotic as well as the abiotic things, they are taken into account. So that we call as the ecosystem. So different ecosystem, they come and they form biomes, and that whole biomes, they come into the umbrella of biosphere. Okay, so this is another typical example of, or the what you can say, the representation of the same thing that we talked about. So here you can see the biosphere is a bigger perspective. So that bigger perspective is, let's say, the whole planet. So here we can have an ecosystem where we can have different kind of organisms which are interacting in their population or with the interpopulation as well. Then we can have community, population, and organisms. So below this organism, we can have a group of cells as well. So these group of cells, when they are coming together and organizing, we call as organ system. And further, we go a little bit into details, we have the tissue system. So even that can be studied under the ecology. Then the smaller entities, what we have is the cells. So different kind of cells, they are also a functional unit where different kind of, let's say, small molecules, they are interacting, they are coming together. So in a way, you can conclude from this particular slide that the ecology deals right from the molecules to the whole planet. So it's starting from the very small things to the large perspective. So ecology is kind of everywhere. So let's see what are the biotic and the abiotic factors. So every now and then in ecology, we talk about the interaction of biotic and abiotic factors. So these biotic and abiotic factors, they interact amongst themselves and constitute the whole ecosystem. So let's see what are those biotic factors. So these abiotic factors, they are the non-living components. So these non-living entities, they constitute the biotic. Sorry, they affect the biotic counterparts. So as an example, we can see that temperature, sunlight, rocks, so they are there. So let's say, for example, temperature. So in areas where temperature is really high, so in India, we can imagine that temperatures are really high in the desert states. Let's say, for instance, Rajasthan. So here, in some parts of the state, the temperatures could go up to 48 or even 50. So now, depending on the temperature, there is development of the biotic components. So what are those biotic components? So those biotic components could be the vegetation, the plants. So the small and the bigger plants, they are affected by the presence of this high temperature. Now, because of this temperature, only few plants could survive. And those plants, they have specific kind of adaptations. And those plants, they dictate what kind of organisms or what kind of birds and animals they will survive in that particular area. So only those animals which are capable of feeding and digesting these plants or their fruits, they can only live in these areas. So now because of this high temperature, there is less vegetation, less plants, and correspondingly, there will be less variation in the animals and birds which are there. Even the presence of microbes will be dictated by the availability of the plants. So another example could be the, let's say, rocks. So rocks, they also constitute a major part. So you might be aware that this state of Rajasthan is quite famous for different kind of stones. So let's say our Central University of Rajasthan is in Kishangarh area, and this particular area, Kishangarh, is very renowned for marble. So that marble is a white stone. So this particular area, you can find there's a lot of variation in the availability of white stone. So now this availability of rocks, it also dictates whether the plants will grow in this particular area or not. And if plants are growing, then what would be the variety of plants will grow. So this will again determine the presence or the survival of the animals and also the microbes. So in a way, you can say that temperature, sunlight, rocks, soil, they all determine what will be the biotic counterparts. So the another term that comes is the biotic factors. So these are the all living things or their materials that can directly or indirectly affect organisms in its environment. So that would include the interactions. So here in broader term, we talk about the different plants and animals. And at the smaller, we can see some microbes, that is fungus and the bacteria. So let's see that if we have a availability of, let's say the water availability is good enough, so we'll have a wide distribution of a different kind of plants. So now these different kind of plants, what they will have is that they may have different kind of fruits. So let's say we talk about the plain areas. So there we can have different kind of crops. So we can have rice, we can have wheat, or some other variety of, let's say, potato, vegetables, other vegetables. So depending on that, the kind of animals those feed on them, they will be large. Even the human population would be larger in those areas. So if we, let's say, talk about the human perspective, so in those areas where the land is really fertile, where different kind of crops can be grown. So let's say in UP, let's say in Kerala, Tamil Nadu. So there the soil is considered to be really fertile. Different crops can be grown. So because of that, now in those areas, the population is also really high of humans. Now, not only the humans, the other animals which are surviving, let's say, on directly or indirectly onto these crops, their number is also high. So if you may be aware that grains, this wheat and other crops which are sown. So now because of that, their fodder or their waste parts, they can be utilized as feed for the animals. So these areas, they may have a lot of dairy farms. They may have a lot of cows and buffaloes or other animals which are considered as to be the farm cattles. So the availability of them will lead to further availability of more and more milk products. So in a way, so it's the soil, this is the abiotic factor which is controlling the biotic factors. Now the biotic factors, they also control each other. So one of the example that I already gave you regarding this, let's say Central University of Rajasthan, where the increase in the number of snakes kind of led to the increase in number of peacocks. So now there has been a couple of examples where different kind of organisms are there and a new organism was introduced. So that new organism further dictated the survival or the presence of other organisms. So at some later point, we'll talk about those examples as well. Okay, so let's see a little bit detail about the abiotic environment as well. So in the abiotic environment, there is absence of life forms. So what we usually talk about is the physical environment. So in that physical environment, what we have is, we can talk about the geology, that is the kind of rock or the soil type which is available in a specific area. We can even talk about the topography. So this topography is nothing but the landscape. So you might be aware that in some area it's plain, some area it's mountains, and also in some areas we have ravines. So it's kind of unequal or uneven land surface. So then we talk about so these topography and geology, they are relatively stable. So they don't change in like couple of months or years. They may vary in couple of decades or maybe in centuries. So usually this particular aspect, that is the geology and the topography of the landscape, remains unaffected. So then another aspect that could be constituting the physical environment is the world location. So now depending on the latitude and the longitudes, or the, you can say the closeness to the equator, the temperature variation could be different. So those who are very close to the equator, there we have warm climate, and those which are away from that, let's say close to the poles, so there the temperature is lower. So then we have this climate and weather. So this thing is really variable. So every now and then these keep on fluctuating. So in a way you can say that there's a fixed cycle for this. So every year you'll see that the temperature goes up and down. So if the winters are around, then temperatures are really low. And if the summers are around, then the temperature is high. Then we have spring and the rainy season as well. So which is kind of intermediate between these two weathers. Then we may have some catastrophes. So every now and then we hear of, let's say, some volcano has erupted, some earthquake has been there, and some flooding has been there. So these are kind of events which also dictates the presence of biotic forms. So these events, they occur in the abiotic environment, which could lead to the influence on the biotic components. So let's say for this geology, where we talk about the rock and the soil type. So this overall geology or the land surface, that could be affected by the plate tectonics. So plate tectonics, if you are aware that whenever there's an earthquake takes place, so people see, it's usually cited that the plates are moving. So it is the plate tectonics that dictate that kind of catastrophes. Now again, due to presence of different plates or different morphology of the rocks which are beneath the soil surface, that will dictate what will be the appearance. So at some places where it's really rocky, there will hardly be any variation in the kind of plants or animals which are growing there or surviving there. But where this soil is there, where the soil is really thick and the availability of moisture is there, there you see there are a lot of plants and animals. So then we talk about the igneous activities. So we see that the volcanic eruptions, they lead to the formation of different kind of rocks as well. And also the movement of water, that is because of the rivers or maybe because of the rain, that could lead to the sedimentation erosion process of the rocks. Okay, so coming to the rocks. So these rocks, they are usually mineral ingredients. So there's a presence of different kind of minerals into the rocks. Now these rocks, they could be, you might be aware, classified into three different types. So these three different types are the sedimentary rock, metamorphic, and the igneous rocks. So sedimentary rocks, they are usually the sedimentary, they have been formed by the sedimentation process. So they are kind of soft rocks where the different layers have accumulated over a period of time. So some of the examples could be sandstone, chalk, limestone, and shale. So these are different kind of rocks which has been explored by humans, and they are used for making different kind of building materials. Then comes the metamorphic. So those, I would say that kind of sedimentary rocks which has been exposed to high temperature. So they have molded because of the presence of high temperature and metamorphosized into hard stones, hard rocks. So these comes into the category of marble or maybe some kind of other shells. Then comes the igneous. So these are formed by the magma or the kind of eruptions coming from the volcano. So they are usually non-porous. So they comes into, let's say, granite, pumice, or other things. Okay, so one of the major components of the abiotic is the soil. So the soils are so they are usually we can have some inorganic as well as the organic content into the soil. So the inorganic content, that is usually derived by weathering of rocks. Now, there are a couple of reasons which could lead to the weathering of rocks. So one of the most common example that you read is the movement of water. So that could be either in the rainy season or because of some rivers and lakes. And also there are a couple of other reasons. Temperature could also lead to there, some volcanic eruptions, some shifting. So that could also be lead to. So So the type of rock usually decides the type of soil in a particular area. So now those areas where the rocks or the stones are really soft, let's say the sedimentary part, so there the soil will also be not that harsh. So there the vegetation or that will be different kind. In those areas where there's availability of, let's say, metamorphic or some igneous rocks, so there the soil will be different, the texture will be different, and also the kind of plants or microbes which can survive will also be different. So this weathering of rocks can be of two types, mechanical as well as the chemical weathering. So mechanical, all of us understand that this is because of, let's say, breakage or movement of water. Chemical weathering is, let's say, when these rocks, they are usually exposed to water and exposed to high temperature because of the, let's say, sunlight. So some chemical reactions may take place. So that could lead to the breakage. Let's, for example, limestone. So if water is coming into that, then there's a very common reaction that takes place, and some calcium and those kind of salts will be liberated. So soils, they are composed of different sized particles. So we can have soil as sand, silt, and clay, and we can have the organic matter. So this soil or the sand, it could have different proportions as well. So we can have sand, silt, and clay. So if we look at the particle size of the sand, so this is usually less than 0.5 mm. Silt is a little bit smaller, which is 0.02 to 0.05. And clay is even more smaller. So that is 0.025. So in a way, we can say that this particle size dictates what will be the overall constituent of the soil. So if you have noticed that clay is really sticky, it's very soft to touch. So especially when it's wet, and when it is dry, it's very hard. It takes very hard form. So now this particle size will dictate what kind of soil it will be. Okay, so coming to the biotic environment. So this is the community which will be dictated by the different kind of organisms living in that particular area. Okay, so before we move to different this biotic component, I would like to ask you if you have any questions. So do you want to ask anything? If no, then maybe I can move ahead.
Sir, I have a question regarding biome. What is biome? I don't understand properly, sir. Can you explain one more time?
Yeah, you can imagine, let's say, for example, I give you a very small example. So let's say you live in a colony. Okay, so let's say its name is, let's say, some Janta Vihar or something. So you can imagine that that particular Janta Vihar, it could be one whole biosphere, one whole bigger planet. So now you can divide that colony into different houses. So let's say your house, my house, somebody other's house. So that is the small component of that. And further in that component, there are different people who are living. So ultimately it comes to the organisms. So in a way, you can say that the whole biosphere is one big unit. So that biosphere unit is made up of several biomes, or that biosphere is split into smaller units which are known as biomes, where the biotic and the abiotic components are interacting, and there is a mixed kind of thing. It's not only that the uh, plants are only there or the soil is only there. So we have plants, animals, microbes, and as well as the abiotic factors. So we can have sunlight, we can have soil, we can have water. So all the components, when they are divided into couple of zones, couple of regions, they are called as biomes. And taken together, we come into the bigger picture,
Excuse me,
which is
sir.
biosphere. Yes, Rutvi.
Sir, then what is the difference between an ecosystem and an biome?
Okay. So ecosystem, it could be a specific area. Okay. So that specific area is where you have biotic as well as the abiotic components. So that could be a really small area. So let's say, for example, Central University of Rajasthan. So that itself could be one ecosystem. But if we talk about, let's say, whole country, or let's say whole continent, so there we have interaction of some other things also. So what are those other things? So let's say in Rajasthan, we have a different kind of organisms. So it is possible that those different kind of organisms, they are not only living in Rajasthan, they are going to, let's say, Pakistan as well. They are going to other neighboring states, let's say Gujarat and UP also. So kind of considering a bigger picture. So it's almost similar to ecosystem, but we are having more interactions, a more variability, a more reason, where there are more interaction between biotic and abiotic components. So that's a kind of, you can say that ecosystem is a little bit defined area. Biome is a really big area.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so we'll talk about this a little bit. So biotic environment, so this is usually made up of several different organisms. So if you remember from one of the previous slides where I talk about that what is the population. So usually the population is a group of specific species, specific individuals. So let's say there's a population of dogs, cats, deers, or humans, or maybe plants and microbes. So if these plants and microorganisms, if they are coming together, if they are interacting in a particular area, we call it the community. So that community living is all together interacting amongst themselves. So let's say the cats and they are interacting amongst themselves, and let's say cats, dogs, or mice, they are interacting each other. So now these interactions, they can be divided into two types. So we have this intra-specific. Also, I think I wrote it wrong. It's not infra, it is intra-specific, and the another one is inter-specific. So intra-specific means that the interaction which is taking place in the one single population. So let's say the interaction of dogs, the interaction of cats, or the interaction of mice amongst themselves. So when we talk inter-specific means that one species interacting with the another. So it is possible that the animals, they are interacting with the plants for food, shelter, or some other reasons. And also they could be, these microbes, they could be interacting with the bigger animals for, let's say, their survival, for their stay. So they may consider it as their home, because the microbes, they usually survive on, let's say, body surface of animals. Even we humans, we have a lot of microbes on our skin. So that is kind of their survival, their home, their food, they gain from them. So we call as interspecific. So let's see, there are a couple of interactions which are there. So one of the reasons, one of the intraspecific interaction is the reproduction. So as all of us, you may be aware that a single species, or let's say a different, and the organisms, they interact amongst themselves. So one of the major aim is for the reproduction. So dogs, they interact among themselves, cats, mice, birds. So all the organisms, they interact with their species to produce their offsprings. So that is kind of considered as one of the ultimate aim of the survival, to put forth their progeny. So this is one of the most common interaction that usually we see amongst different organisms. Second one is the parental care. So that is usually done by females in most of the organisms, but it could be done by males also in some organisms. So the newborn kids, or you can say the offsprings, they are not capable of surviving on their own. So in order for them to survive, they need some kind of parental care. And that is usually provided by the female parent. Then another one is the social behavior. So that is also called the altruism. So this is a kind of behavior which is shown by different organisms. So let's say, for example, if we talk about the forest system, in the forest, so there we see that there are deers, there are elephants, hyenas. So they are kind of living in that particular space, and they are respecting each other's space. So it is possible that, let's say, a deer which is feeding in a particular area, he may be living in that particular zone. So that deer doesn't go and fight with the another deer, that you move out, I'll come to this particular area. So they usually have their defined areas, or they feed in those common areas, and they take care of the interests of each and every one. So let's say, for example, even in our humans, we have a family system. So there you can see that the parents, they take care about the interest of the kids. Or even in a colony or in a society, people live together and they take care of the interests of the other people as well. So let's say if we have a house here, the neighbor has their own house. So it's not that we go and ask the neighbor to leave their house. So we are kind of living together. So that's a kind of social behavior where the organisms take care of the interest of others as well. So that's a behavior shown by all the organisms. Then another is the competition. So that competition is usually for the environmental resources. So it could be space, food, light, water, and the partner. So in terms of space, I can quote you one example that let's say when a tiger grows up, so that tiger would like to define its own territory. So either it will force other tigers to leave, or it will kill those other tigers. So it has now earmarked its territory. So that tiger will only survive in that particular area. Even you can see the dogs around us. So they will be kind of defined to 1 or 2 lanes, or let's say 1 or 2 houses. So in that area, if another dog comes, they are after that particular dog. So it's kind of, they are competing for the space. Now the similar kind of competition happens in terms of